Hello, welcome. Thank you very much for attending this session. My name is Panagiotis Menegos. I'm a journalist and member of the IMED team as podcast content and production manager. I believe it's common sense that we live in complex and interesting times, and we need investigative and explanatory journalism more than ever. But it's also common ground that original reporting and good journalism are costly and hardly profitable. And moreover, with the media, we're giving a daily fight to adapt to the so-called attention economy and get our stories read or watched or listened by as many people as possible. So having this in mind, in this panel, we'd like to explore if there is room for sustainable innovation and alternative media models that could disrupt or reshape the existing ones, or happily live together with existing ones. We'll discuss if in 2024 every company is a tech company, let alone media ones. And we'd like to examine also alternative sources of revenue, print experiments in a digital world, hybrid models, and how technology and thinking outside the box can help us redefine platform democracy and serve the public interest. Don't forget that it's the 28th of September. Happy World News Day to everyone. It's a lot, I know, but we'll try our best with Juan Carlos Van Meek, Director of Digital Innovation and Programming at Al Jazeera Media Network. Hi, Juan Carlos. Paul Raju, Co-Executive Director in Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP. Stili Haralambous, Founding CEO and Publisher of the Daily Maverick in South Africa. Yes, Stili. And Tolu Adeyemo, Senior Program Manager at Code for Africa. I'd like to thank you again for participating in this year's forum. And I want to start with Stili. Can you please explain the Daily Mavericks hybrid model?
Yeah, thank you, and glad to be here and be able to participate in the panel. The hybrid model is almost a panel-beated effort for us to be able to access the full spectrum of funding that we need to maintain an organization of our size. What I mean by hybrid, our biggest shareholder is a non-profit company, so that allows us to access access tax-efficient donations and grants. We also have a commercial advertising and sponsorships team, so we generate advertising sales, host events, and then we have a voluntary membership program. The voluntary membership program is our reader revenue effort. There's no paywall. We keep all our journalism free for anyone to be able to access. But we do create a membership program around the relationship with news, completely voluntary. People choose the amount that they want to contribute. And then within that, we look for ways to create engagement opportunities that help improve what we do, improves our relationships with our members, and also improves our newsroom efforts through driving audience engagement and engaged journalism techniques.
Okay, we'll delve into that later. You have prepared us a slide for the financial aspect. Paul, I believe everyone here is familiar with the amazing work you're doing at OCCRP, but can you tell us more about its operation model and how it has evolved since 2007?
Sure. So OCCRP, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, is a not-for-profit. We are a platform, a network for performing investigative reporting that exposes crime and corruption. We are now working on grants. We keep on applying for grants left and right, up and down, everywhere. We got, from 2007 up to now, we got annual budgets of about 21 million US dollars. So we started as a very small organization in Central and Eastern Europe, and we kept on growing. And we're kind of half technology, half investigative reporting, because you can't really develop this level of investigative reporting and this cross-border investigative reporting that we're practicing without developing your own technology. So that's our model right now, and it's something that's sustainable up to a level. But in order to get to the next level, you kind of have to augment that, and I believe we'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit later about Cloud Alliance, which is very interesting, and we'd like from you to present it to us. Tolu, how would you break down what Code for Africa does?
So Code for Africa is not a newsroom. We are an ecosystem builder. So as the largest non-profit network of innovation, media and innovation labs in Africa, we support over 500 media institutions and civil society organizations. And our work involves helping local newsrooms and media startups in a variety of ways. We help local newsrooms to build infrastructure, and we do this through our technical incubation program. We also help these organizations in setting up desks within their newsrooms and helping them to build a system, as well as helping them to get accredited by International Fact-Checking Network. Through our mentor-driven incubation program, we provide training and mentorship for newsrooms to build their capacity. We help them refine their revenue models. We help them to better understand their audiences. So these are just one of the many ways we are helping newsrooms to remain sustainable, for them to continue to operate, and for them to continue to produce high-quality investigative and fact-checking stories.
We also have here like a short presentation later about one of your tools, Method Kit. So we'll get back to that. And Juan Carlos, how do you mean digital innovation in Al Jazeera?
Yeah, thanks for having me. First of all, Al Jazeera is a legacy broadcast company. For those of you who don't know the brand, started in '96 with the Arabic service, 2006 with the English service, and relaunched with digital innovation in mind in 2018 to address the new media landscape that we all face today. And the first order of business is finding out a way to go to where the audiences are consuming content. We can't wait like broadcast, it's very passive. In our world, it's an active medium. So 85% of our audience is on mobile, right? So, a really good example, we're dealing with a bit of breaking news right now, right?
Yeah, I know it's been a hectic week for you.
Yeah, and just a short while ago, we got news that Hassan Nasrallah may have been killed in the bombing last night. And so therefore, I was on the phone a short while ago talking to my team about how we're going to cover this story across all digital platforms, right? Still developing, bear with me. So, how do we get this news across to as many people as we can, millions upon millions of people, in as many different platforms as we can? So we start with the website, right? We have also worked with our TV partners. How do I get that signal out on as many platforms as we can, including Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, for example? Let's look at analysis, features, opinions, for example. And then we talk about the video content. Are we going to get explainers out there? Are we going to clip SOTs? Get that out on TikTok, Instagram. Talk about audio. What are we going to do in the audio space? Which is another story, because now audio is becoming video, because YouTube is the second largest audio platform in the world right now. So therefore, everything in video matters. So how are we going to tell this breaking story?
Everything in video matters, even if it doesn't show anything.
Believe it or not. Believe it or not. So how are we going to get our content out to as many people as we can every single day, 24/7? So that's kind of the approach we take day in, day out.
Mm-hmm. We'll get back to that as well. Stilly, we've mentioned in our prep call many times the phrase to reshape the model, to change the model has been repeated. So you want to delve a little bit into the financial aspect and how do we get more revenues or alternative sources of revenue? You have prepared a slide.
Yeah, it's a few years ago I participated in this bit of research which looked into what are the key drivers of sustainability within the news ecosystem and what is the definition of sustainability, and was a really important piece of work because it really helped break down these things and to be clear about, well, first of all, it's not just about being able to pay your bills at the end of the month, right? You need to be able to pursue your editorial vision. And so you're not dragged into the kind of work or the kind of journalism you don't really want to be doing. So it is important to still be sustainable enough to pursue that vision and also to continue to innovate. So those three things were the definition of sustainability, and a lot of people rather choose the word viability because sustainability sort of conjures up this thing of survival, right? Where we need to be more than just that. And then within that, these were the four pillars of driving sustainability. So product and audience, monetization techniques, foundations, which was grouped a lot of strategic stuff together, and then the market context in which we operate, the environment in which we operate. And so I think the first two now, product and audience and monetization, are almost table stakes. Like if you, in order to be a sort of a general news outlet with a big audience, you need to have the stuff right. And if you get really good at this stuff, it moves the needle, but not that much. And I think the two that I'm focusing on now is the foundations and the market context. And so those are the two that I spend most of my time on, working on how do we as an organization become more strategic? How do we have a deeper understanding of the needs of our audiences? And how do we develop an editorial strategy and a way of working? How do we design the organization that we need in order to best achieve this strategy? And then working on things like leadership development, training, culture, all of that stuff, which is very hard to do, doesn't get enough investment, doesn't get enough time, attention, priority. And it's the one that creates the biggest impact on sustainability from our experience and from studying other organizations as well. And unfortunately, it's the one that is the most overlooked. And then the other one is the market context. So the environment in which we operate in Africa, it is 8 to 10 times harder to do what we do than it is in most developed markets in the world. And so it almost says, like, in a way, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're just never going to get out of this hole unless the market context changes. And so I'm also spending a lot of my time looking at how do we improve the market context, the environment in which we need to do this special job that the Constitution and the constitutional courts have elaborated on in South Africa. So where are the special concessions and support measures to do this special job? They just don't exist. And so we're working on making we are putting forward a bunch of recommendations that would look at a policy framework to help support public interest journalism in South Africa, and hopefully other countries will pick up on that when this becomes law.
Yeah, you're talking a lot about legislative changes, such as tax rebates or whistleblowing protection, and that could produce incentives for investors. But I wonder how this is possible and realistic when so many journalists around the globe are facing slaps. And very often the state or its agents are the ones that are taking legal action against journalists.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things that comes up there is most governments, or a lot of governments, are not in favor of creating a more supportive environment. But I think what we need to do in those countries where we do have an opportunity to put these forward, then we should push as hard as we can so that if one place can get a comprehensive set of well-designed policy in place, get that in front of other places who can then either be inspired or be jealous of that. And then one by one, we can start creating the change processes, like dominoes falling. And so if we can get it right in South Africa, if we can inspire some other countries to do that, we chair the G20 next year. We host the summit in South Africa, and I'm hoping that we can have something quite inspirational to put up in front of the attendees there, and then maybe help it spread, take it to the AU, take it to the region, and hopefully, play a leading role in this space.
Tolu, can you elaborate a little bit on how do you work with newsrooms developing tools such as MethodKit for fact-checking?
Okay, so our newsroom partnership goes beyond providing story grants. We help newsrooms remain sustainable. So what that means is that we help them build infrastructure in their organizations, and we do this through seeding and prototyping. We help this newsroom refine their strategies. We help them to understand their audiences. We also provide technical training and mentorship to the newsroom for them to build their capacity. In addition to that, we also provide access to resources. So what that entails is we provide access to our knowledge resources, we provide access to our technologies, we provide access to our operational systems within our fact-checking initiative called PesaCheck and our investigative lab. So we strengthen the team within the desk that we help in establishing in these different media organizations. And through the technologies, we build different tools. For example, we have a tool called Pesayetu. So Pesayetu is a digital tool that helps to visualize government budget data. And this helps reporters to make complex information accessible to the public. In addition to that tool, we also have a recent tool called Method Kit. So Method Kit
if we can share the QR code, sorry about that.
Yeah, so Method Kit was developed in partnership with Deutsche Welle Academia, DWA, and a Sweden-based company called Method Kit. So what the fact-checking Method Kit does is it helps to visualize and streamline fact-checking processes. So it helps media startups, it helps organizations, even individual journalists or anyone that is interested in media innovation to understand how to set up check desk or to manage a verification desk within the newsroom. So what I mean by check desk is a dedicated unit within a newsroom, a dedicated fact-checking unit within a newsroom. So we use this tool in various ways. We use it for our training. We use it for discussion with founders, for them to understand the step-by-step or the aspects of, key aspects that they need to consider when they want to create like a fact-checking desk or they want to create like a fact-checking media startup. So this covers 57 key areas, and these 57 cards then is divided into 7 different categories. So we're looking at people. So what does a typical check desk team need to entail? Do we need to have editors? Do we need to have fact checkers? We look at operations, looking at the different environments where the check desk needs to operate. We look at the audience. So how do you identify your audience for your products? We look at products. How do you align the check desk to resonate with your audience? So this is how the method kits work. We do have like the physical kits. We also have a digital toolkit. So we're just sharing the QR code so you can access the tool I'm using this QR code. Yeah.
Paul, talking innovation, what's the idea behind Cloud Alliance and what was the need that led to its conception?
Well, I'm convinced that we need to change the ways we are doing journalism in general. Because, we're kind of looking for eyeballs at all times, and that's good. But in my opinion, investigative reporting is really useful when you serve populations that don't even know about you. And how do you do that? You do that by increasing the scale of your investigative reporting. So the Cloud Alliance, which is an initiative that we started at OCCRP together with the Global Forum for Media Development, GFMD, and with many organizations who are here right now at this meeting in Athens, ICAJ, Pulitzer Center, others. We have 30+ members. And the idea is that, as investigative reporters, we're hit almost every week with huge amounts of data, leaks, public data, all sorts of information that we cannot process, that we cannot use in our daily work. First of all, because we don't have enough the numbers. I mean, you look around the world and there aren't more than probably 10,000 investigative reporters able to follow the money. Now, that's a very small township, right? 10,000 people. The problem out there is huge, is enormous. These 10,000 people with the current technology will only be able to probably tackle about less than 1% of the corruption and crime that happens around the world. That is not really what the public needs. So this is where we have to change the game a little bit incrementally. So the Cloud Alliance came about because we realized we had to do something about all these leaks that come our way, every week. At OCCRP, for instance, at my organization, we're paying more than $300,000 every year to Google Cloud for data processing. That's a lot of money for us. And that is with the current data levels. We need, and that's about between 150 and 200 terabytes of data. That's not even a lot of data. We need to be able to process at OCCRP at least 5 petabytes of data. Imagine the cost of that, And currently, across the investigative reporting industry, we're mostly processing text. We have to be able to combine text with video, with sound, with a lot more, in order to get to the real stories that are in the public interest. So the Cloud Alliance is our way to find a solution to this situation where there's this tsunami of data and journalists who are incapable to work with this data. So now we are conducting an audit. We got the money for an audit that's going to be done by the end of October. We're auditing about 12 organizations, major media, who are dealing with a lot of data, to see, and we're kind of pursuing 3 avenues with this. One is we'll probably have to lobby these cloud providers, for better prices for us, because the prices are just too high. We need to convince donors maybe to allocate more money towards data processing power, towards cloud computing. But the third solution, which I think is the most feasible, it will be pending with the audit, obviously, is we'll have to build our own infrastructure. We'll have to build our own infrastructure, at least for the back end of this data processing, where you extract the entities from the data, where you match the entities, You'll never be able to replicate the cloud solutions that are out there because there are lots of very, very useful apps built on top of those. But the data crunching is really what's the most expensive. So we're also looking at building our own infrastructure in a place that's outside of the GDPR, outside of the Patriot Act, cheap energy, clean energy, and so on. So these are things that we're looking at with the Cloud Alliance, and the Cloud Alliance is our way at OCCRP and across the industry to kind of build this ecosystem and to keep it in tune with the public need.
So, Juan Carlos, how do you see this conversation about alternative media models from the standpoint of a legacy media? How can this relationship be symbiotic when we all fight for this diminished attention of the audience?
It's about vision. Where do you want to go as a media company? I think that's really important, because from vision, everything else cascades. If the vision is not aligned, you're going to really struggle in the 21st century as a media publisher. We're talking about financing a short while ago. I mean, we have phenomenal brands that have folded over the last couple of years because they couldn't finance themselves. I mean, just overnight I heard that some folks over at Scripps, they just won an Emmy. They're about to pick up an Edward R. Murrow. They're laying people off. We saw what happened to Vice last year. This is real. So the key is to make sure that the leadership is aligned with where we're going as a media company, and make sure we make those important strategic decisions, speaking with one voice and leveraging the resources we have at our disposal to get to our audiences as effectively as possible. And as of right now, the most effective way is in the digital space.
Okay.
That does not mean there is no place for broadcast. I love broadcast. I come from broadcast. They are not mutually exclusive. But the dynamic needs to change. And so I would just say, how do I see innovation, sustainable models? For a company like mine, it's finding out how to reinvest your resources and find out how your audience is consuming your content and invest in those areas. In addition, find ways to partner with others. Find ways to find sponsorships. Go out and find money wherever you can, because the money will not come out and try to find you.
You talked about layoffs, and I see in my notes that South African news media industry lost more than half of its workforce from 2010 to 2019. Things have not turned out better in Greece or in other parts of the world. And my question is, does traditional or legacy media declined due to tech disruption? Has tech obliterated the media? I know Juan Carlos has a strong opposite opinion, but I want to hear all of you. Juan Carlos, please.
About
if tech has obliterated media.
Okay. First of all, we're not a technology company. I'm a media company. Okay.
Answering the
okay, absolutely.
question.
We're a media company, and I'm straight about that. The product is the content. The product is, in my case, news and current affairs, and programming. We are not there to leverage algorithms, our own or anyone else's. Yes, I want to go ahead and get as many people out there consuming my content wherever you may be. However, it's the content that matters. That's the only thing that matters. And so therefore, this discussion about technology companies saying, I think it's a bit rich when a technology company like X says, well, you know, we're, what's the word they like to use? We are the town hall, the global town hall. Listen, that's all of the power with none of the responsibility, okay? So if we're gonna go ahead and put out our content, it needs to be credible, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be honest. And so, yes, we have to work with the technology companies, but make no mistake. The only thing that really matters is the credibility of what we put out there. And quite frankly, I will work with any partners out there in the technology space, so as long as they understand that we are here to tell stories that are honest, credible, and quite frankly, we have to be responsible for what we put out there, and so should they.
Tolu, what do you think?
Well, I would say today, many companies, whether it's bank, whether it's my mom's online clothing store, the media, are all leveraging technology to do their work much better. So in a world where misinformation is spreading very fast, technology is helping media organizations to dig deeper and faster into stories. It's helping them to verify whether information is true or false. Investigative journalists are using open source intelligence or OSINT tools to investigate hate speech, to investigate disinformation. They are able to dig in deeper into corruption. So in my opinion, I think technology has really helped how media work, and this is just beyond how they operate, but then also how to help them get their content distributed and accessible to the public. So in short, technology has really helped media organizations to dig deeper and faster and to make news more accessible to the public. So in my opinion, I don't think technology has obliterated media.
So Paul Steely, I guess what the question that is always asked in media conferences, journalism conferences like this is, should public service media work with the big tech, and how can they avoid working for the big tech? What do you think?
Well, it's a very hard question to answer. I think big tech at times helped. I mean, the whole independent investigative reporting movement around the world was built on the back of technology. That was, in some cases, built initially by big tech. But then we learned better. Big tech will help you, for a distance, and they will try to take advantage of you, for the longer run. So you gotta always reach to a level where you are able to develop your own technology to ensure and to tap into the open source movement and to be able to tune your investigative effort to places where you can't be controlled by big tech companies. This being said, I mean, technology, in my opinion, is what helped bring to life all this investigative movement that's independent and that led to these massive collaborations across the globe. Without the technology, this wouldn't have been possible, these networks. So big tech at times helps, at times doesn't. It's up to us to be smart about it, to use the big tech while being aware of the fact that big tech will always want to use you.
Okay. Stilly, what do you think?
Yeah, I think of it in light of all the policy efforts and the legislative efforts around the world that have been the focus of how we as an industry have tried to respond to this disruption, and it hasn't gone well. From Australia to Canada, I don't think that we can call those successful policy interventions there, and we're now in this quite fractious relationship with organizations that play a pretty big role in society. And so I come back to this idea that, first and foremost, journalism is a public good. And the problem is it's not funded like a public good, like other public goods. And so until we solve that problem, I think we're always going to be in a different, we're not going to be operating from the best place when we think about how we work and how we engage or how we choose to engage with big tech. And so right now, a lot of people are scrambling to get big tech to pay for journalism, when I don't think that is the underlying problem that we need to solve. I think let's solve the public funding model first, and then let's see, if laws were broken, if market practices and market abuses took place, then let's throw the book at them. But until we solve that public funding model problem, then it's going to be clouded with all sorts of different issues around compensation, who's using what are the legal rights to using all of that, and I think that just clouds the real issue.
And of course, there's AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, in the beginning, we thought it would completely change everything, and then we said it might not. How do we leverage AI, Juan Carlos?
Well, first of all, it's here to stay. And so the reality is, how do we work most effectively with the technology that is ever evolving? If we think the first version of ChatGPT was something, I mean, what's coming next is stronger still. And it's everywhere. It's pervasive. So I embrace AI, but I'm cautious of how we use it. I think in the news business, how we use AI is we have to be responsible. We have to be transparent when we do use it. We have a few products that we go ahead and we produce that uses AI for images and things of that nature, and we go ahead and tell the audience that we're using this.
Take responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, give it another look, because you got to make sure that we're not making an editorial call with an image or language that is coming from an AI model, right? Because even the developers of these AI models don't necessarily know how these models are coming to their conclusions. So we have to be incredibly careful with AI. I think it's something that is a value add if used responsibly. As I've said before to some of my team, we're not going to lose our jobs to AI yet, but we will lose our jobs to people who understand AI better than we do. So if you're in this game now, you really do need to understand the models out there and how you can start to use them effectively and responsibly.
Tolu, how do you incorporate AI to your job?
Okay, so some of the tools we build uses AI. So through our Civic Signal initiative, we do media monitoring across Africa. So we use AI, we use machine learning, we use these technologies. So we also train our media partners on how to use AI for content writing, for script writing, and how they can use AI even for fact-checking. So this is some of the ways we've been equipping our media partners on using AI, and then making them understand that AI is not going to take their job. They just have to build their capacity and be prepared for the how the technology is evolving. Yeah.
Paul, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I mean, just that those massive data sets that I was mentioning earlier, that we want to use, inside this Cloud Alliance initiative, you will require all sorts of flavors of AI to process the data, to extract relevant information from the data, to be able to expose, crime, corruption, and all sorts of wrongdoing.
Okay, so let's step off tech and let's talk art a little bit. Can you tell us more about Floodlight and how OCCRP is turning investigative reporting into film fiction?
I mean, look, at OCCRP, all we do is, these are integrated efforts. So we're, at the origin of this Cloud Alliance, where we're trying to augment the investigative reporting space, the ecosystem. But we also realized that there's a need, obviously, to get to more public through other means than journalism. So what we did, together with the Gabriel Garcia Marquez Foundation in Cartagena, Colombia, for those of you who don't know, Gabriel Garcia Marquez was an investigative reporter before becoming one of the greatest fiction writers in the world. He won lots of prizes, and so on. So I had a discussion about almost 3 years ago with the director of the Gabo Foundation in Cartagena, Jaime Abello, and we were discussing about the fact that investigative reporting in general has small audiences, so how can we change that? So we came up with the idea to turn investigative reporting into fiction film, and we came with this concept of fiction in the public interest. For many reasons. One is to get to more public through fiction. The other reason is that in the investigative reporting process, you amass a lot of data that you don't use in your final reporting. And this is data that you shouldn't use in your final reporting. You're investigating an organized crime group, and you learn about the wife of the leader of the gang, or the leader of the gang that's cheating on the wife, or so on and so on. So all sorts of personal details that you won't be using in your investigative reporting, but that can be used to build character in film. So we are in the second year of Floodlight. This is the name of the project, where we asked across the network and outside of our network investigative reporters for fiction film ideas that should be grounded on truth. So we got, for the first Floodlight, we got about 275 ideas from journalists. We selected a number of 14 of them, and we had 14 journalists coming to Cartagena in December of last year, and they were presenting in front of this audience that is made of high-level film producers. To give you an idea, Susanna Grant, who was the writer and the producer for Erin Brockovich, was there. Paul Colesby, who was the writer and the producer for Ozark, was there. Only very, very high-level people, and they already embraced some of these ideas, and we have 4 deals, out of that. So the idea is to increase the audience for investigative reporting, to increase the quality of the depiction of crime and corruption in films that become very popular, and also to make money for the investigative reporting industry, because if one film gets made, and as Floodlight, we're getting 18% of the final deal. So we designed a legal framework for this. We designed various frameworks. So the journalists get engaged with the filmmakers. They become consultants for the filmmaking process. They become part of the writing rooms. So they have an active role in the filmmaking. They get paid for that. Floodlight doesn't get any money from that. But if the film gets made, 18% goes to Floodlight and back into the investigative reporting industry. So if one of these films becomes a huge international hit, that's going to be more than all the funding that's given to the investigative reporting industry right now. So we're seeing Floodlight as a bit of a game changer. And there's another part to Floodlight that we're developing together with a company from LA, and that is to turn investigative reporting into video games. The video games market, for those of you who don't know, is projected to be in 2026 about 806 billion US dollars. There's the music and the film industries combined, more than that. So that's where we're kind of going, in a fast way. We're probably going to organize the first game jams in February or March of next year with our partners from LA. So the idea is to augment investigative reporting, to find ways to increase the audience, to find ways to inspire people to become investigators, because this is the other problem. There's no education for future investigative reporters. And if you think about yourself, and if you think about how you started, your investigative reporting career, what was that? Perhaps a film, perhaps a good book that you read, or perhaps an article. So the idea is to get to new audiences, to form new people, the new generation of investigative reporters, and to actually get better salaries for investigative reporters, if possible.
And
because
we were joking in our prep call that in a world where post-truth no longer surprises, or even bothers in some cases, fiction might be the answer to get some stories to bigger audiences. I want to touch something last before we take some questions from the audience with Steely. Can you walk us through the reverse journey that the Daily Maverick did from digital to print?
Yeah, so we started out as digital only in 2009, and we focused just on long-form analysis, opinions, investigations for a long time. And we always felt that our journalism would do really well in a lean-back, weekly printed format. And we tried for a while to sort of partner with existing operations, but we're not an industry that's really known for those kinds of partnerships and collaborations. And so we started this journey to launch our own weekly print publication. And as we were planning to launch it, then COVID hit, and we were faced with the decision: do we go ahead? Do any of the assumptions and the hypotheses that we've tested that led us to this place, has any of that changed? And we felt no, and so we launched it in the middle of the pandemic. We were delayed by probably about 4 or 5 months. And yeah, I'm happy to report that it's still around. It's still growing. It's the only growing weekly print publication in the country, and it's just about break even now. So it's an important add-on to our digital offering. It gives us an extra dimension. Like, we think of our audiences as different audiences prefer a different mode or a different channel of consuming it, and yeah, it's an important part. And it's unfortunately the rest of the print industry is really struggling, and so we also see this as a sort of a service to the industry, is also something to help it hang on there, because we feel print is still the best mechanism by which to deliver a basket of journalism, because the breadth of what you read, the amount of time you spend with it, you'll read articles you wouldn't normally read online, and I think that's important. And also how we design a newspaper and put it together, you're thinking of it as a complete product that services different needs that people have, and so that thinking is sometimes lost in the digital, the digital hamster wheel of production. So yeah, that's how we got there.
Yeah, and it stops us from falling into bold conclusions such as the death of print and stuff like that. I have so many other questions that I want to ask, but our time is up. So if there's some questions from the audience, maybe we can get the mic over there.
Working. Okay, it's not. Oh, it's working now. Thank you very much, all the presenters. I want to first of all challenge us that when we have a garden like this, I think the purpose first should be to challenge some of the assumptions that we usually have about the way journalism works. And I am saying that because I think it was Carlos who did mention that journalism media across time has been relying on technology. the print, the radio, and the television relied on technology, but those technologies were not ceded to the outsiders. The ownership of those technologies are owned by the media people. The only difference now is that the technology that is driving journalism and media is now being owned by outsiders. And for me, when we are framing the problems of the challenge confronting media, we should frame it as a question of ownership. So if the media is not trying to own the technology themselves, if the technology is being owned by outsiders, then we'll always complain that, the media is not being properly treated, journalists are not being properly treated. So I think that perhaps what we should be talking about is how does Daily Maverick and some other newspaper in South Africa also own a platform that operates like Facebook? I mean, where was New York Times where Facebook was setting up that platform? Where was New York Times when they were setting up the X? These are platforms that news media organizations should have set up themselves. But we waited for outsiders to set it up, and then we're now competing with them, and then they take off all the resources and all the revenues. So for me, if you are framing the problems confronting the media, we should frame it as a way of who owns what.
Who owns what? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. It was more than a comment than a question, but if you have any thoughts, please.
I'll give it a shot. If I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we need to get more involved in these outside technologies to kind of control the journalism that's out there in the media space and in the digital space. Is that kind of the gist of it? We shouldn't just wash our hands and let them run with our content, right? Roughly? Okay, first of all.
Yeah, I believe that was the
Yes. Meta, X, you name it. We can go down the list. They're not media companies. They didn't launch. They're for-profit technology companies that use an algorithm to feed things back to you in an echo chamber. That's what they do. That's how they make their money, and they scrape your data. We don't do that. That's not our job. That is not to say that we have not partnered with the Facebooks, now Meta, with Instagram, with TikTok, by the way. Okay? The hottest platform out there right now. We have partnerships with them. The question isn't whether we want to partner with them, it's whether they want to partner with us. News and current affairs is a messy business. We tell stories that they don't want on their platforms. And so therefore, it's kind of difficult. That relationship is a give and take. Instagram, for example, earlier this year, they're getting out of the news business. We can't grow on Instagram anymore. But TikTok's interested. Facebook got out of the game a few years ago. So you see, it's ever changing. I can't rely on that platform. However, I believe it was Paul that was talking about go out, build your own platforms. I couldn't agree more. Our website, that's an O&O. We own that. Going out, if you want to go ahead and build a streaming service, which we just launched, do you want a white label or do you want to go ahead and build your own? We build our own because now we own it. So wherever we can own our own back end in order to support our front end journalism, we do that. In the meantime, we are where we are. We do not control these technology companies, and once we release our content out into the world, this is all I can guarantee is that as long as Al Jazeera is telling their story straight, you're going to get the straight story from the platforms that have our product on them. However, I cannot speak to their accountability, their responsibility across the wider interwebs, because quite frankly, they're for-profit companies. They're not in the business of making news.
Can we pass the mic in the second row, please?
Thank you so much. I'm Marina Pio. I'm from the University of UC Berkeley. My question is, you mentioned that we should get money from wherever we can, and I'm just thinking, does it matter who's funding the media, and where does that leave, especially in cases where funders have their own intentions, they have their own motive, they dedicate their priorities, where does that leave journalism, and should we care as innovators, as as people were building media spaces, should we care where the money is coming from? Or at the end of the day, what matters is that we are funding our operations and we're funding journalism and we're getting the story there. But what kind of power are we giving to the funders out there if we're getting money from wherever we can?
Paul, and how can we keep our editorial integrity intact when we're in a constant search for money?
I think you always should conduct your due diligence on the donors. You shouldn't get money from donors with hidden interests. And when you sign the contract, the agreement for the donation, it should be stipulated there in very clear letters that, you're independent from an editorial perspective. You'll always have to report back on how you use the money. That's fine. But from an editorial standpoint, your only master is the public. You serve the public interest. If the donor is okay with that, then I don't see any problem in taking the money. Now, there are parties that will want to whitewash their image through you, and that you should also be concerned with, because for many of these donors, they're giving you a very tiny amount of money, and they're going to say, hey, I gave this money to an organization like OCRP that's investigating organized crime and corruption. But that's a very, very tiny, even if the contract is right, even if they don't have any power over you. Whitewashing is something that's real, so you have to be very, very careful about that. At OCCRP, we refused donations. I can tell you, last year we refused a donation of $500,000 from a bank that wanted to match some funding, and we said no, because that bank, although we didn't report on the bank, benefited from the fall of another bank that we reported on. So you have to think really, really, hard about why do people want to give you money. So that should be part of the process, and this is hard due diligence.
Do your homework, do your vetting, put some grounds on the deal. Do you have time for a quick one, or no? Just one, if there's one more. There.
I guess this is sort of a targeted question. I'm very familiar, obviously, with the Daily Maverick and the South African media space. And I just wanted to ask if you could expand on the policy part you were talking about, because I haven't heard of that until right now. And I'd really love to know how you what that means, how you're going to approach a legislative standpoint to help the media.
Yeah, it's what we are working towards is a comprehensive suite of policy interventions and measures, looking at what's worked around the world, what hasn't, looking at research reports that have been published at the global level and also at the local level. So we're looking at everything from indirect support through, for example, zero-rated VAT on membership subscriptions and newspapers, for example. Tax credits for people to spend on public interest journalism outfits. So you literally are reducing the amount of tax that you pay and choosing to either pay tax or to pay a news organization. We're looking at investor allowances to get investors back into the media sector, because right now it's impossible to find commercial investment for media. And so if we can offer them a depreciation allowance like other industries have offered investors to attract investment, then that'll help. So we're looking at everything from those kinds of things, and even some, I think maybe even been someone from OCCRP who put it forward once, a compensation on assets recovered or fines imposed from the work of investigative journalism. So things across the board like that, looking at not as many direct subsidies, where I think France has a lot of that and has caused unintended consequences. And so we need to learn from that. And so the more indirect ones that encourage still quite a bit of market dynamics, support and rewarding of excellence as well. So the public needs to choose who to give their tax break to, the investor, the business, the donor, all of those things. And so that's what we're trying to put together.
Okay, thank you very much for attending. Let's give a warm applause. Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it.